Hi, everybody. This is Virginia Milner coming to you for the DeKalb County Library System. And I have another jewelry tutorial. And today we're going to be making a nice, I think, a really pretty piece. I call it Scalloped Splendor. And this is it. It kind of has a bit of a Native American feel. I'm going to show you a couple of different patterns that you can do for the dangle part of this. But we've got our scalloped chain that we're going to make from 20 or 18 gauge wire, depending on what you want to use. And we're going to make this scalloped, or not scalloped, but this dangle down here at the bottom. And I'm going to show you a couple of different designs that you can do for that, because I want you to make your own design. I don't want you to feel locked in to one particular design. That one I did with a Native American feel to it. This one I did with a different colored wire. I used bronze wire for the scallops. And then I used African trade beads for my dangle, and did a slightly, a bit of a different design on it. I just used dark red seed beads for the frame, and then I used African trade beads to make a sort of design in here. And what I did was do kind of an icicle effect, just kind of a zigzaggy, long, short effect with my and made some head pins, or some pins, some decorative pins to hang my dangle in the center, just to have something different. And I'm going to show you even a third way to do this. I'm going to show you this particular one with a more of a Native American feel. So I'm kind of giving you the best of both options, and then you can make your own design. I'm also going to show you how to make your connectors. That's these pins with with the beads on them, and how to make your own clasp, which I like to do. And then you have minimal purchases. All you need for this is beads and wire, and if you prefer, you can use head pins, which I'm going to use for the demonstration. These are long 3-inch head pins, and you should be able to find them in the store, but I'm also going to show you what to do if you'd rather just make the pins with your 20 gauge wire. So you'll have both of those options. Now, the first thing I want to show you is how I come up with my designs for the dangle. So what I did for this one, I just basically draw it out. And I'm going to warn you right now, I am not a good artist, but here's my drawing for that particular piece. This is the way I wanted it to look. I wanted it to have kind of a triangle in the center with a sunrise design, which means that the darker beads are on the outside here. There we go, on the outside, and then it goes in to the lighter beads. And so that's how I drew it up. I have 7 across here. I have 7 pins with beads, head pins with beads on it, and then the design is right down here in the center. Yeah. So what I did was design, just draw out how I want the colors to look. So you can kind of get an idea that that's where I was going. And I'm going to give you a close-up of the actual finished item, so that if you want to use this for your example, you can see what I did. So you can see that I have 7 rows of beads here, centered. There we go. Let's back it up so you can kind of see. So I have 7 rows of beads, 4 different colors. I have a very light kind of peach color, and red, yellow, and green. So the peach color I was using for the frame, there it's all across the top and on the sides. So you'll see the first pin has the peach and the red at the bottom. The second pin has the peach at the top with the red, yellow, and red. The third one has the peach at the top with red, yellow, green, yellow, and red. And the fourth one in the center has one peach bead with one each of the red, yellow, green, peach, green, yellow, and red. So you can kind of use that as a way to make this pattern. You can draw it out, or you can just use what I've done here in order to make it. And then on the second one, where I used the African trade beads, I used dark red as the frame across the top and across the bottom, and then just kind of made a graduate incline and decline across the bottom. And what I did was just cut the eye pins different lengths so that I could have sort of an icicle effect on here. And I'm going to show you how to do a combination of both of those. I love this design because I'm going to show you how to make a shorter version of this. These two are a little bit longer. One's about 20 inches, the other one's about 18 inches. I'm going to show you how to make a choker out of this, or just slightly longer than a choker. And so I'm going to make the longer dangle down the center so that it'll hang very pretty around your neck. So let's get started. What we're going to need is I'm using 20 gauge wire, and it's soft enough to work easily with, and it will harden over time so that it'll hold the shape of the scallops. So I'm using that for the scallops. I'm using, again, 3-inch head pins for the dangle in the center, but you can also use your 20 gauge wire and make your own head pins. I'll show you how to do that. You're also going to need beads. I used 4 colors of seed beads, a ruler to measure your wire, round nose pliers, square nose or chain nose pliers, and cutters will be your tools. And you'll need something to shape your scallops. I just used a little round jar, but you can use a little round jar or some kind of cylindrical item in order to create the shape for your scallop shape. Okay, so the biggest thing that you want to do on this is determine how long you want your necklace to be. And what I've done on this, the necklaces that I made the scallops 2 inches, gave myself 2 inches of space from ring to ring on each of the scallops. I have 5 scallops, so that gives me 10 inches just scallops. And then you want to add however much you need to create the length that you want in your connector beads. So I've got 10 inches in my scallops. I want it to be about 16 inches long. So I'm going to 15 to 16 inches long. So I'm going to make each one of my connectors about 1 inch. So that's going to give me 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14. See, oh, that's going to give me a little bit more. So that's going to give me about 18 inches. So which is fine. That's what I don't want it to be too short. I just want it to be up around the neck. And I'm probably going to go with maybe 3/4 inch to 3/4 inch for my connectors. And that'll give me my 16 inches because I don't need that much. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Yes. If I have 1 inch connectors, and I have 6 connectors, that's 6 inches. And if I have 5 2-inch scallops, that's going to give me 10, which will give me 16 inches, which is just about what I want for my just slightly longer than a choker. And then of course that depends on the size of your neck too. So you have to take that into consideration. All right, enough chit chat. I told you what you need. I told you what we're going to do. Let's get to creating. So let's get this done here where you can see what's happening. So I've got my beads here. 4 different colors. I'm going to use turquoise, taupe, brick red, and olive, kind of an olive green. So those are going to be the colors that I'm going to make. And I'm using my long head pins, but you can also use your wire and make your own head pins. I'm going to show you how to do that. So I'm going to cut about just a couple inches of wire because I'm just doing a demonstration. So I've got my wire that I'm going to use for my head pin. What I want to do, let's put my glasses on so I can see. What I want to do is just make a small, very small loop at the end. It's not even really a loop. I'm just turning it enough so that I can create a stopper for my beads. So I'm making a tiny, tiny little half loop here. You'll see that it's not completely closed. Show you that. So it's not completely closed. And then what I'm going to do, and it depends on the hole in your beads as to how big you make this loop. And then I'm going to take my flat nose pliers and I'm going to squish that down to a little nub. So now I have just that tiny little nub on the end. I'm going to center it a little bit. Then I'm going to place my beads on there. I'm just going to put a bead or 2 on here. So that's what it would look like with the bead on it. If I don't want that to show as much, I can turn that down so that it's going to rest flat against my bead so that it's not as visible. When I turn it up, it looks sort of like a head pin, not as visible. So you just want a very small nub, just enough to create a stopper so that my beads won't fall off. So there that is on the bottom. And I have a head pin. Okay, barring that, you can, again, use long head pins that you get from the store. But that's an option that you can use for this. Now, the first thing I'm going to show you is how to make your scallops. I was going to do the design first, but that's kind of the fun part. Well, it's all the fun part, really, but I'm going to show you how to make your scallops. And what I want is 2 inches of wire from end to end for my scallops. So I want my scallops, let's get that up there, to have 2 inches from end to end. So I'm going to give myself a good 3 inches of wire so that my loops will be 1/2 inch each on each side. So I'm going to cut 3 inches. I'm going to go ahead and cut a couple of pieces here. And I find the easiest way to make sure that things are going to be, put that down a little so that they match. I find the easiest way to make sure that my wire and my loops are going to be the same is to do as many of them as you can at the same time. So I'm going to put my two wires together with the ends matching. Now I could do those both together, but obviously because of the graduated size of my pliers, one of them is going to end up being bigger than the other. So I'm not going to do that. So I'm going to do one wire. I'm going to take it down to about 3/4 of the way down my wire because I want a nice big loop. So I'm going to check, grab my wire right on the tip here, make sure the end of it isn't sticking out the back, and I'm going to make my loop. So I'm just going to rotate. Until I have a nice closed loop. It's not quite closed. Let's finish that up. So now I have a nice closed loop there. It's a nice big size too. Then I'm going to go to the other side and I'm going to do the same thing. How, you ask, am I going to know that my loops are the same size? I'm going to go in and check. And this is the same place that I want to put my wire on the other side. I'll go a little bit bigger than I intended because I wanted 3/4 and it goes all the way down. So I'm going to open that up a little bit, make it just a little bit smaller. Let's just close that down a little more. There we go. So about 3/4 of the way down. Now I'm going to do the same thing on this side. Make sure nothing's sticking out the back there. Your wire should be firmly ensconced in between the jaws of the pliers. Make my loop. Just rotate, open, close, clamp, and rotate until I have a nice circle. Here we go. I'm going to check and make sure they're both evenly, both facing the same direction. I think that's good. And now I want to shape it. So I'm going to grab my little cylindrical jar that I'm going to use. I'm going to place my wire on the jar with the loops facing up. And I'm just going to wrap my wire around the jar so that it creates kind of a half moon shape. And there's my scallop. Now I want it to be about 2 inches from end to end, from one end of one loop to the other loop. So I'm going to take my ruler, put it down here, check it out. What I have is about an inch, a little over an inch and 3/4. So I need to shape it a little bit. So I'm going to take my fingers and I'm just going to open it up a little. Just kind of easily open it and check. See where I am? Almost there. Let's open it a little bit more. Nice and easy. Check again. Again, this is nice soft wire, so it makes for very easy manipulation. And the more I work with it, the quicker it will work harden. So it will solidify into the shape of my scallops, and I won't have to worry about that shape coming apart, even though the wire is very soft right now. Over time, it will harden into a solid shape. Almost there. Just a little bit more. I do this in very small increments, so I don't have to worry about pulling it too hard and pulling it out of shape. Here we go. Got one little 1/16 of an inch to go. There we go. Got my 2 inches in here. Very nice. And now I need to do a second one. So again, I'm going to check. Where do I want my wire to go? Right about there. There we go. Grasp my wire, make sure nothing's sticking out. Want it to be nice and firm in between the jaws, but not sticking out the back. You might be able to see where it is right there. And I'm going to rotate, open my pliers, leave the wire where it is, rotate back with my pliers, grip again, rotate, open, rotate back, grip, rotate until I have a nice full loop. There we go. Very nice. I'm going to do the same thing with the other side. Let's check my size. Very good. Go to the other side and do the same thing. Make sure that I'm making my loop on the same, going in the same direction as the first loop. Nothing sticking out the back here. And rotate. Open, grip, rotate, open, grip, and rotate. And I'm holding the wire so that it doesn't slide until I have a nice circle. Okay, overextend it a little bit, and that's easily correctable. There we go. And there's my second one. And let's create our scallop. Grab my little jar here, wrap it around until I have my little half moon. And let's create my scallop. Now, I wanted to kind of match this one, so I'm going to put it up against this one, put the loops together, and let's just kind of shape it to match the one that I already have. That's the best way I know of to get the shapes about the same. Okay, shape, shape, shape. And let's see what we have here. Yeah, I think this is good. Let's just check. And take a peek. That looks good, but let's check with the ruler just to make sure. Yeah, a little tiny bit, about a 1/16 of an inch more should do it. I think we've got it. We have a matching pair. Very good. So that's how you make your scallops. We need to make 3 more of those. In fact, I think I'll go ahead and do one more just to show you. Yeah, I can cut that off. 3 inches. Cut that off. I think I'm going to do that last one off camera so you don't have to watch me do that again. We've already done it twice. That's enough. Let's move on to our dangle. Yay, let's do the dangle. Let's do that. So what we're going to do is this one. Except that we're going to do it with specific colors instead of just multicolored. So you have 3 options. You can do this one, that one, or the one I'm going to show you. This one that I'm going to show you, the one that I just showed you there, or you can do the Native American one that I gave you a close-up of if you want a copy. All right, so what we're going to do is take either the head pins that you make that I showed you, like that, or we're going to take store-bought head pins, and we're going to create a design. So for this particular design, this is what I did. It's upside down. Okay, there we go. Everything is turned upside down on camera anyway. So this is the top, and these are going to be the kind of the graduated icicle type dangles that we're going to be using. So what I'm going to do is have this nice red on top, because I love red, and this is a beautiful brick red. On the picture it shows orange because I only have certain color ink pens to work with, so you'll just have to imagine that's red. So the top color is going to be my kind of my frame color, and then the others are going to be the decorative beads for the dangle itself. So the only thing that's going to change in regard to length and how many beads I use is the top color, because that's what's going to make it look gradually kind of bleed into different colors. All of the other beads that I'm using, the other 3 colors, are going to have 3 beads on each pin. So I have red, green, purple, and orange on my picture. So it's going to have 3, 3, 3, 5 on the first one on each outer pin, and then 3, 3, 3, 3 on the 2 inside left and right pins, and then the center one is going to have 3, 3, 3, and 1. And that is going to create our pattern. That's the pattern that I'm doing. You, of course, can do different patterns, and I hope you do, and I'd like for you to show me what they are. But for our purposes, I'm starting with turquoise, going to taupe, then green, then red. That's going to be my pattern. So I'm going to put on the outside 3 turquoise, followed by 3 taupe, and then 3 green, and then 5 red. So there's my first row. Let's put that over here. And my second row is going to be 3 of each color, starting with the same turquoise, 3 taupe, 3 green, 3 red this time. This one does not want to stay put. Three red. Okay. And then the center is going to have 3 of the turquoise, taupe, and green, and 1 red at the top. So 3. And 1. All right, so here's what we have so far. This is my outer. This is the second to the left and right. And notice how the red ones are going to match up at the top. You want a nice line of red across the top. And then there's my third one. Okay, so that's going to be how that's going to hang. So you're going to have a long one, medium, short, medium, and long. So let me finish up those other 2. First, I'm going to show you how to make your loops. So what we're going to do is cut these off. Give yourself about 3/8 of an inch so that you have enough space for your loop. So I'm going to cut that down. Give myself about 3/8 of an inch, 3/8 to 1/2. It depends on how big you like your loops to be. 3/8 is about right because I'm just going to hang it over my scallop. And it doesn't have to be too big, but you don't want it to be too small because you want your dangle to actually dangle and have some movement. So I'm going to cut that off. And I like to hold on to the end of my pin so that it doesn't go flying across the room. I hold my beads, of course, so that they don't fall off. I hold the end of my pin, so I'm holding both sides. Cut it. Pin is, the end of my pin is still secure. My beads are secure. And now I'm ready to make my loop. Okay, grab my round nose pliers. I'm going to go down about 1/3 of the way, about 1/4 of a way down my pliers so I can get a nice loop. And I'm going to rotate, again, open, rotate back, clamp, rotate, open, rotate back, clamp, and just keep doing that until I have a nice loop. So there's my loop. There's my row of beads. And I want to center my loop. See how it's kind of leaning over to the side a little bit? So I'm going to center my loop by grabbing the loop with the tip of my pliers and rotating back away from where the opening is. So I'm just going to rotate that back, and it kind of brings it up to the top of my beads so it's more centered. So you can see that's more in the center of my beads. and less on the side. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and do the last 2 rows that I need, which are going to be this one and this one for the other side. I'm going to make my loops, and I will be back in just a second. For you, it will be just a little bit of a snap. So here is our completed piece that we're going to use for our dangle. That's what we're going to have. And now we're ready to start attaching our pieces to our dangle. So what we're going to do is make our last little dangle, or our last scallop. And the reason I did not make that last one is because we need to be able to slide these on. So we're going to make our last scallop. Again, about 3/4 of the way back. I'm going to make my loop. Now I'm going to put my beads on. Now what I'm going to do with this, in order to create a nice, neat dangle, I'm going to put beads in between each of my pins so that it doesn't have gaps. Because if I put these on without the little beads in there, you're going to have gaps in between each one. And we don't want that. We want it to look nice and neat. I don't necessarily want to see my scalloped wire. So let's put the first one on. That's the longest one. And I'm going to pick a color. Let's go with the red. I like the red. As a matter of fact, I'm going to put one of those on first. Put my first pin on. Let's put another one of those on. Put my second one on. And I think I'm going to switch it up a little bit. In between my center one and my second to the last one, I think I'm going to put turquoise just because, just for something different. And then the center, and then another turquoise. This one's a little small. One thing that you're going to notice with seed beads is that they're not always accurately cut so that they're the exact same size. And that's kind of the bane of my existence if you're trying to get a consistent pattern. But if you're looking for something that's a bit more natural and organic, seed beads are the way to go because they are very much that. And that's what I like about them. Put my last one on. And my bead. And there we have it. There's my dangle. Yay. Now I just need to make the loop on the other side. Again, I want to make sure my loop is going in the same direction as the first loop. There's my first loop. Slide my pliers down the wire until it grabs the tip. And my wire should be about 3/4 of the way down my pliers. And start my loop. Let's rotate until I have a nice closed loop. There we go. And now I need to shape it. Again, I'm going to grab my little jar, and now I have the joy of working around these beads, but it's not as hard as you would think. In fact, it makes it a little easier because you have something to hold on to while you're shaping it. So I'm going to grab my wire, hold on to my little cylindrical item, and just wrap it around until I have my little half moon shape. There we go. And now I need to open it up until it's the same size as the others. Now, this center one does not have to be the same size. If you want it to dip lower or be wider, it's entirely up to you. You do not have to make this one the same size as the other ones. The only reason that the other ones are, I make them the same size is so we can have something symmetrical. But this does not have to be the exact same as the others because it's your centerpiece. So you can make that as wide or as small as you want it to be. It just depends on how you want your pins to hang. I think that's good, but let me check. Don't want it to be too short. So there we go. I have 2 inches in between my loops, and that is just fine. Sure that's flat. There we go. There's my dangle. I am ready to roll. So now it's time to put my pieces together. I'm going to attach everything. Yeah. So now what we're going to do is create our attachments. So the first thing I'm going to do is make my links. So I want to take my wire, and I'm going to take this piece of wire that I used before so that I can be nice and thrifty, that I cut off, and I'm going to make my first link. But what you're going to need is, I'm going to go ahead and make a loop. Let's make sure it's long enough. And the easiest way that I've determined to do that is to put my beads on my length of wire, make my first loop, and then cut off the other end, just to make sure it's long enough. And I'm going to show you that. So for instance, if I have this long piece of wire right here, I don't know how much I need. Cut off this little nub. So I'm going to go ahead and put my beads on. Let's go with, let's say this beige one, the red one, and the green one. There we go. So that's going to be one of my links. I'm going to make a loop in one end. Doesn't have to be too huge. Let's go about 1/3 of the way down my pliers, right about there. Make a loop. Let my bead slide down, and I have this much wire left. So all I need is about 3/8 of an inch of wire in order to make my other loop. So then I can cut it off. So if you're working from your spool, you can do it that way. Put your beads on, make your loop, then cut it off about 3/8 of an inch to a 1/2 inch down, depending on how big you want your loop to be. That way you don't waste a lot of wire. You don't lose too much wire, but I already had this cut, so no big deal. Again, I hold my beads and I hold my wire so that nothing goes flying. So I've got my thumb and one finger holding the beads, like so, and then I've got 2 fingers holding the end of wire that I want to cut. Cut it off. No wire flying across the room, nice and safe. Beads, nice and safe. And time to make my loop. Also in the same direction as the first loop, third of the way down the pliers. Make my loop. And there we go. Alrighty. And so now how to connect. You want to open up your scallop loop just like you do a jump ring. You never want to put your pliers in there and pull the ring apart. You want to keep the ring, the shape of the ring. So the best way to do that is to put your pliers on the outside of your loop and then flip it up like you're flipping the top of a can. And slide your beads on and flip that top back down so you still have a perfect ring. So there we go. Let's see if you can see that. There we go. Same thing on the other side. Let me go ahead and make another set of beads here. Okay. I cheated. I actually have one made. So let's make this one over here. So let's go with this pin. It's already cut. I'm gonna make my little loop. Put my beads on. So green, red, and turquoise. I have a little bit more than I need. I only need about 3/8 of an inch. So I'm going to clip off what I don't need on this one because I was reusing the piece that I had left over. So to avoid too much of a loss of my wire. Again, now when you have a small tip like this, you don't want to put your finger there because again, it can fly and it can lodge itself into your finger. So the best way to handle something like that is to put it down in some kind of a well so that it will just drop in there. So I'm going to cut that. There it is, nice and neat down in my little jar. Nothing went flying, fingers saved. Don't have to worry about putting your eye out or picking up wire off the floor. Okay, making my next loop. There we go. I'm going to center my loops like I showed you before. Just grip it with the tip of my pliers, rotate it back away from the opening until it's right on top of my beads. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. I need to do it with this one too. I'll fix that in a minute. Center that. Close up any opening that might be created. Okay, so now we've got that. Let's attach my next scallop this side. So that's going to go there. And this is going to go here. Open and close. And open on the other side. Slide it on my beads. Make sure it's laying properly. Yes. And close. Go. And then let's put it on the other side. So here's my next one. That's going to go there. I like to lay it out so that I know that the scallops are going in the correct direction. So I'm going to open it up. Slide it on. Check to make sure it's laying flat. Yes, it is. And close it. Here we go. And that's one side already. So now I'm going to finish the other side. I already fixed that side. Make sure it's going the right direction here, the way I want it to do. Ah, look at that. This one's right, but this one's upside down. So you'll get to see me correct that. That's what happens when I make things ahead of time. Okay, so I'm going to open that up and just flip it around. Turn it the other direction so that that's just going the same way that this one is. Close it. Actually, that needs to go on here. So that needs to go here. Like that. And then this needs to go here. Like so. Okay, so I'm going to attach that, and I will be back in a very small snap. So here we have it. Here is our little choker. It's right now about 13 inches long, and by the time we add the beads across the back, because I'm going to stretch it out with some beads in the back there, and our clasp will have 16 inches. But here's what it looks like before we put those other beads on. I'm going to leave that there so that you can just gaze at that lovely little thing there. And so what we're going to do now is make our extenders across the back. Give it a little bit of a decorative touch in the back. So for that, I'm going to use my 20 gauge wire. I'm just going to cut off a couple of inches because I need about 3/8 of an inch on each side for my loops. So again, you can either put your beads on and then loop it and cut it, or you can just cut off a couple of inches. I think I'll go ahead with the put my beads on method. So let's see, I'm ending up with turquoise. So let's go red, green, taupe, and turquoise across the back. Do I want to make it any longer than that? Yeah, let's add a couple more. Oh, you know what? Let's echo this. I think that would be kind of pretty. So red, green. Yeah, let's do that. It's going to extend it a little longer than I expected, but that's okay. So I've got red, green, taupe, turquoise, and I'm going to go back. Taupe, green, and red. Yeah, let's see what that looks like. It's fun playing with design. Now one side needs a small loop. Again, a third of the way down the pliers to connect with my scallop. And the other side needs to be a little bit bigger because I need to be able to hook my clasp through it. And you can also use a jump ring. It's entirely up to you. I'm just going to do it the very minimalist way. Okay, so there we go. I've got my strand. I'm going to cut it off. I'm going to give myself a good 3/4 of an inch because I want a nice big loop. As a matter of fact, I'm going to wrap that loop just because. So I'm going to give myself about 1.5 inches of wire. So there's my 1.5 inches. And I'm going to wrap my loop. So I'm going to put my pliers in there. I'm going to bring my wire back until it's horizontal to the beads. Slide my pliers under about halfway down my pliers, maybe a little further than halfway between my tip and the hilt of my pliers, so I can make a nice big loop that will accommodate my clasp. So that's big enough for my clasp to go through. Got my loop, and now I'm going to wrap it. And I'm going to wrap between the pliers and my beads just a couple of times so that it's nice and secure. And then once I've got my wrap, I'm going to cut off the end. Yeah, a nice couple of loops, couple of wraps. Cut off the end. Again, there's that little tip. Don't want that to fly across the room, so I'm going to just cut it down here into this little container. So it drops down in there nice and neat. Actually, it's stuck to my pliers. There we go. And now I'm going to clamp down that end so that it doesn't catch on anything. So that'll just kind of hide in between the folds of the other wire and the bead. So it's nice and clean. Now I'm going to attach that to the end of my scallop. Again, open it up like you would a jump ring, attach it, and close. Make sure that's nicely closed, completely closed. No openings. There we go. And do the other side. So that's going to be like that across the back. So it's nice and decorative across there too. Okay, let's do the other side. Get another piece of wire. Red, green, taupe, turquoise, oops. Taupe, green, and red. Make my small loop. Cut it off with about 1.5 inches for wrapping purposes. And make my large loop. Horizontal bend. Slide it back to about half, a little more than halfway from the edge of the tip. Wrap my wire over the top to create my loop. And then wrap the wire between the pliers and the beads. Cut off the excess. Push down the end. Nice and neat. And attach it to my scallop. And there we go. Let's get that in place there. There. And now all that's left is to make my clasp. And we're all finished. So let's do that. So I'm going to take my 20 gauge wire. I have people question me about 20 gauge. That's kind of my go-to wire, and I find that it makes my clasps nice and strong. Over time, it hardens into a nice, firm. This is just something else I did. 20 gauge wire, nice and strong. You can use 18 gauge to make it stronger if you're a little worried about that, or if you sell pieces and you want to get it out right away and you don't want to wait for it to harden. 18 might be better, but I'm using just plain 20 gauge wire. So what I'm going to do is leave it on the spool. Usually what you can do is just cut about 2 inches off. And by the time you make all of your loops, you'll have about a 1 inch, 3/4 to 1 inch clasp. That's what I'm trying to say. And I like to make S clasps because it doesn't matter which direction you hook. If you're left-handed, you can hook it easily. If you're right-handed, you can hook it easily. It's one of the most versatile clasps and pretty clasps that I know about. And it's a really nice one because it corresponds with the way these spirals, these loops go, these half loops. I don't know if you can see that. It kind of has the same directional look. So what I'm going to do is just take the tip of my pliers, grab the tip of the wire, make a tiny, tiny little loop, because remember, that has to go through the wrapped loop that I made on the end. So I've got a tiny loop here. Now I'm going to slide my pliers down until the loop is hanging over one side of my pliers. And then I'm going to bring the tail of my pliers around the other way and wrap until it touches the head of my loop, like so. So now I have a little shepherd's hook on there. Now I'm going to cut it off down until I have about half an inch of wire here, or I'm sorry, about an inch of wire here, because I need about 1/4 of an inch for my loop and another 1/2 to 5/8 of an inch for my shepherd's hook. So I'm going to cut that off, make my loop. This tiny loop needs to be made on the same side or going in the same direction as your large loop here. Tiny loop. And then slide the wire down until it's to the largest part of my pliers down here. Here's the bottom of the loop. The bottom is the side with the opening on it. And bring the other side of my wire over the top until it meets the loop on the other side. And here is my shepherd's hook. And now I can hook that in to both sides of my necklace. It's one side. There's the other side. And there we go. There it is. Here's our necklace. Nice, neat, and tidy. Let's see if we can put it on here and show it. Might have to flip to the other camera. Let's just see, shall we? I don't know if you can see that. I think I'll flip it to the other camera so you can get a better view. Lay down here. There we go. Okay, so let me show you that. And there it is. There is our finished necklace. Very pretty. And it's a little shorter than the other two. It's closer to choker length. Maybe a little bit closer to between choker length and collar length. So that's it. That's our piece for today. And I hope to see you all make something like this. It doesn't have to be the exact same. You don't have to make the same pattern. I hope you will do your own patterns and show me what you make. Please, please, please post it on the Facebook page for the library so that we can see your beautiful creations. I'm going to give you a close-up of that pattern. Please show me what you got, and I'll be back again with you next week. Enjoy the week. Enjoy the slightly cooler weather here in Georgia. I don't know where you are looking at this, but if you're in Atlanta, Georgia, I hope you enjoy the slightly cooler weather, and I will see you next week, or more accurately, you will see me next week. Bye-bye, and have a good week.